I too want to echo some of the sentiments, the positive ones that have been mentioned here today. I thoroughly enjoyed my time on the Budget Committee. The Chairman, I enjoyed the relationship. Sometimes we disagree, but I enjoyed it very much. And with all my colleagues on both sides of the aisle. And Assemblyman Kelly, I do have to thank you very much for your suggestions. You hope that all of us who are partaking in this debate come back next year. I accept your endorsement for my re-election very much. And I also appreciate the tenor of the debate that we've had on the Budget Committee and that we will continue now here today. The Budget Chairman mentioned how New Jersey is not like other states, and I agree with that. And he helped make my point in that it's not enough to say that New Jersey's raising taxes and so are some other states, and that makes it okay, or makes it equivalent. One of the points that the chairman made was that Pennsylvania increased its income tax rate from 4% to 6%. Even with a 50% increase in Pennsylvania's income tax rate, it's still a lot lower than New Jersey's. These states are right next to each other. One need look no further than the parking garage of this very building to find a number of taxpayers who decided, and who are intimately familiar with the workings of New Jersey, decided it's cheaper to live on the other side of the river than it is to live here. The only state, once we're done taking our action today, I believe, the only state that will have a higher income tax rate than New Jersey's is Hawaii. It's a lot harder for folks to live in one state and commute to Hawaii than it is to live in another state and commute to New Jersey. We hear, and I've heard, and will continue to hear from the other side, the amount of courageous cuts that have been made. And I heard Assemblyman Kelly's list. But if you total up the real cuts, they are not the courageous level of cuts that we've been led to believe. The number our friends on the other side of the aisle is using, as far as their cuts go, is $4 billion. Included in that $4 billion is $2.5 billion of federal stimulus money, is $1 billion of pension payments that were in the budget last year, not in this year. Gets us to $3.5 billion of the $4 billion right there. Then you add in a whole handful of other things. Right off the top, you have about $400 million of debt payments that we're simply not making because we're restructuring debt. That will mean we pay higher rates going forward and compound interest. But that $400 million won't happen next year. That $400 million was a payment we made last year and will not make this year. Then we add in the $300 million in savings and furloughs, and very quickly you're well above the $4 billion that we hear were courageous cuts. And despite all the cuts we hear about, everything that's been done this year doesn't change the fact that New Jersey is one of the highest tax states in the nation, the highest by many estimates. And does not change the fact that our business taxes as well are some of the highest, and also that are standing as one of the worst states to do business in. So hearing about all this courage just doesn't ring true. By any measure, we have not made the cuts that we're hearing about. If you look at, and the chairman mentions this on a regular basis, it's a point well taken. The number of state dollars has changed somewhat from last year to this year, but that doesn't change our budget commitment next year and the hole that we continue to dig at an increasing rate for the future taxpayers of this state. If you add up the $29 billion or so in state dollars, and the $13 billion in federal dollars, and the $3.3 billion in off-budget spending that we made, we actually increased spending this year over last year. And this is a number that next year we'll have to face without the $2.5 billion in federal money, without, supposedly, without continuing to defer pension payments. The hole we're digging is terrifying to the taxpayers of New Jersey, and should be. Regarding the tax amnesty program and the additional $400 million of the immaculate collection that we took in this year at the last minute. It's wonderful that we have some extra money to be able to return to taxpayers in the state of New Jersey. But even with that, the property tax rebate program is a cut from last year to this year. Even with that, Rutgers professors looked at it. And again, I quoted Princeton folks earlier. The Rutgers professors are no more slaves to Republican ideology in New Jersey than are the Princeton folks. The median income family in New Jersey will face a $1,200 cut when you take into account the loss of the deductibility of their property tax payments and the property tax rebate that they will lose. We heard just last year and the year before how sustainable the property tax relief was going to be that was being provided, and we also now know how ephemeral that promise was. Assemblyman Scheer pointed out that some of the suggestions that we made on our side of the aisle are long-term plans. And I agree with that. The other side of the aisle, year after year after year, has come up, as Assemblyman Malone mentioned earlier, what a crisis we're in. And we hear year after year how it's really, we're planning for the future in the future. We have to deal right now with this emergency budget and these emergency deficits. And we continue to kick the can down the road, and we continue to not plan for the future. So Assemblyman Scheer is right. We are doing two things. We're putting a comprehensive plan together that has really come together over the last 2 years since I've been here, that plans for the future, lays down principles such as restraining spending, giving control over our ever-increasing, spiraling increasing in debt to the voters of this state. Those are good things. Those are things we need to do, and it's never too soon to do it, no matter what crisis we're in. And on the flip side, we've offered billions of dollars of real and genuine cuts. I will be honest, though, and agree with the other side. When they look at us and say, you don't have all the answers, and we don't. And I anguish over it. I was elected to come up with those answers, and every single day, I commit myself to figuring out those answers. Over this last 2 years, I think this side of the aisle has added to the level of discourse and come up with a plan that soon will have the answers that we need. The difference between our side of the aisle, terrifyingly, and some of the folks on the other side of the aisle, and this government, is that we admit we have a problem. The Office of Legislative Services, which is nonpartisan, says we're quickly going to face $6 billion structural deficits that cannot continue to go on. It just cannot happen. The fact that the other side of the aisle is standing up again and again today, saying this is courageous, we've solved the problem, really scares me. At the very least, it should be what at least some members of the other side of the aisle have said, and I give them credit. This budget stinks. We cannot continue down this path. Between Chicken Little and Pollyanna is reality. I moved to you today that this side of the aisle is looking at reality. The solutions that we put on the table will bring us ultimately to the answers that this state needs. But we need the cooperation on the other side of the aisle. I hope to have it soon. We certainly don't this year. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.